Okay, hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webinar, The Promising Reality of AI. My name is Kevin Hogan. I am the editor-at-large for eSchool News, and I am happy you are joining us today for what I know will be a very insightful and important conversation. This event is brought to you by Promethean. Promethean is a leading education technology company working to transform the way the world learns and collaborates. From their founding in Blackburn, England almost 25 years ago, to global operations in 22 countries today, they continue to explore, innovate, and inspire, designing learning and collaboration tools that are built for breakthroughs. Their award-winning interactive display ActivPanel and lesson delivery software ActivInspire and ClassFlow were designed to engage students, connect colleagues, and bring out the brilliance in everyone. Now, before we get to our conversation, I'd like to take a minute to go over some of the features of the platform that we're using for this webinar. This event is being recorded, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. Within a few days, you'll receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar, along with a PDF of the slides. If you have a question or comment for the panelists, there's a chat function that you can launch. Feel free to use this feature also to contact someone from the eSchool News team if you have a technical question. And I encourage the audience, if you have a thought, if you have a question, a comment, please enter it in because it really helps the panelists in driving the conversation in a way that you want to hear it go. So with these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with some introductions. First, Levi Belnap. Levi serves as the Chief Strategy Officer at Merlin Mind. As a serial entrepreneur, Levi has led the creation of innovative new technology ventures within existing organizations and as an independent venture-backed startup. Prior to joining Merlin Mind, Levi was the VP of Business Development and Strategic Partnerships at Wyzant, where he helped build a platform to connect millions of students and tutors for additional learning support. Also with us today, Matt Cole. Matt is the Senior Vice President of Sales at Promethean. His experience spans over 20 years of dedication to the technology industry, leading professional services, operations, sales, and marketing across small, medium, and large businesses. Matt joined Promethean in 2019. Gentlemen, thanks both for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great to be here, Kevin.
It's great to be here.
Really looking forward to this conversation, kind of especially in the context of this week. Folks in the ed tech journalism circles are going bonkers over ChatGPT, which is bringing AI once again into the spotlight, certainly not only in the education space, but overall. And it kind of leads me into what I hope will be a kind of an introductory to what we're going to talk about today and what we're not going to talk about today. So maybe, Levi, I'll start with you to talk a little bit about what AI means to you in terms of the context of Merlin Mind and education, and just to kind of kick us off in the big picture.
Yeah, great, Kevin. So I'm thrilled to be back here again with you and the crowd here at eSchool News. I know we've had kind of a series going here where we're looking at artificial intelligence in education and the way that Merlin Mind views it. So as a very basic summary, we think of artificial intelligence as using computing to do things that previously humans did. Right. So like, can a computer do something that I used to have to do? Can it now do it so I don't have to do it? And where the power of that comes in is when you free humans to do more things that they're uniquely able to do. So very simply, historically, I would have to go through a sheet of numbers in a spreadsheet and calculate data and figure out all of the kind of math of something on my own. And now we have computers that do that much more efficiently than I do, right? That's a form of artificial intelligence where we can offload those processes that used to take us time and energy and attention that computers can do in a snap of an instant because their processing power and capabilities are so much vaster than ours in some ways. So that's kind of artificial intelligence generally. When we talk about what we're doing now at Merlin Mind, we have some of the world's leading experts in artificial intelligence who have come together and built a specific company that is building what we call purpose-built AI for education. And we've taken a path to say, where can we start today where AI can help teachers and students in a way that takes away the things they don't want to be doing today so they can focus on the things they do want to be doing today? And that's really important because you could use AI to do lots of different things and automate things that may or may not be helpful in the classroom. And I think that's where we can get to ChatGPT and the exciting idea of generative AI that can create language and can converse with us in an almost human form that may be very different than some of the things we're doing today with AI in education. But I'll kind of pause there and we can dig in.
Yeah. And, if you have the opportunity, if you want to show the video that you have as well.
Yeah, let me just, so the alliance we have with Promethean is critical to how we're trying to bring this new AI technology into classrooms. And so this is a video that we built together that basically shows how when you bring AI and voice control into a classroom that already has the leading interactive technology with the ActivPanel, where you can touch and engage and interact with students, you have a really magical experience where teachers and students now can, from anywhere in the room, interact with touch technology, interact with voice technology, automate workflows to simplify the way they use content and interact with technology. And so this is a 1-minute video that just helps you see what that means, because what we've learned is unless you see it, you just don't really get it, right? It's different. It's category breaking. It's transformative. And so you got to see it. So let me just play this 1-minute video so you get a taste of what it means to bring Merlin and Promethean together into a classroom.
Great.
Technology's done so much for education, yet it can pull teachers away from interacting with students and add stress to their already hectic day. Now there's a better way. Introducing Merlin, the voice-controlled digital assistant that makes using technology in the classroom easy.
It used to drive me nuts, searching for apps and fumbling with cords. Hey Merlin, show my laptop. Now it's done for me. Thanks, Merlin.
At home, I ask my devices to do things for me all the time, and it's great to finally be able to do that at school too. Thanks, Merlin.
I just say, hey, open my presentation on penguins, so I can pay more attention to my kids. Thanks, Merlin.
Using everyday speech, Merlin makes technology seamless, so you can focus on what's most important, your students. Save time, reduce stress, and engage more. Meet Merlin at prometheanworld.com/Merlin.
Great stuff, Levi. Thanks. And Matt, let me ask you, when you look at that video, it reminds me a lot of the interactions that I would see with Promethean boards 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, as I date myself. What was it about the Merlin technology that Promethean saw an opportunity to have a connection there and implement it into your systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the biggest things, and Levi touched on this, is the efficiency factor, right? When you think about Promethean and what we really stand for is allowing teachers, educators to bring content to their classroom in a variety of different forms, right? But bringing that content to the front of the classroom via our interactive technology, so both the teacher and the students can interact with that content. This partnership with Merlin has made it has given teachers a much more efficient way to actually capture that content and bring it into the classroom so that it can be interacted with, whether or not the teacher is at the front of the classroom, or maybe he or she is at a desk helping a student. By simply utilizing the Merlin command, saying, hey, Merlin, can bring content up to the front of the classroom at the really almost instantaneously, so that the teacher can talk on topic about whatever it is that they're working with a specific student or the entire classroom. I think that's really the biggest thing that we're most excited about here at Promethean in our partnership with Merlin.
Gotcha. And right away, audience members chiming in, which I love. Tracy asking whether Merlin Promethean board is vendor specific. Can you talk a little bit more about the relationship? Is it something that's exclusive? Like, how is it set up? Matt, I'll go with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So Merlin right now is not vendor exclusive. While Merlin, we would love for people to be utilizing Merlin with the Promethean panel in all classrooms, we recognize that our partnership with Merlin is not exclusive, in that Merlin does work with other products and other tools. And I'll let Levi talk about some of those that the product can work with.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So The vision behind Merlin is really, how can we help teachers and students more effectively use all of the technology that they're using in their classrooms? How do we get the best out of the best, right? So if you have the most kind of the interactive active panel in the classroom, how do we make that better? But maybe you have an old projector, or you have a non-interactive television. Not every classroom has the same setup and are at different stages of technology kind of deployment in their classrooms. Merlin's Symphony Classroom AI hub device can be connected to any display with an HDMI input to then help you control the content on your laptop, right? If that's what you're teaching from, you can now control the content on your laptop with Merlin.
Great, great. And in that video as well, there were some references to kind of these technologies being used at home and in your car. I mean, that does seem to be the best kind of correlation. But what sets the classroom dynamic experience apart from, say, the use of Alexa playing your favorite song in the kitchen, or your GPS in the car?
Yeah, you know what, Kevin, that part has actually been an interesting struggle for us as a company to bring Merlin into existence. The most obvious comparison is, oh, I have Alexa in my house. I get what it means to have Merlin in the classroom. And we kind of lean into that because you want it to be understandable, right? Unless people understand what something is, they don't want to use it. They don't want to learn more about it. And so that's really kind of like the smallest way to open the window of what Merlin could be in the classroom. But what's been challenging is Merlin is a very different type of digital assistant that is purpose-built for classrooms, specifically engineered for the workflows. So like what a teacher does on a daily basis, what a student does on a daily basis, the technologies they're interacting with in a classroom, their ActivPanel, the internet, their Chromebooks, the projectors, whatever they're using. And that's where we differ dramatically from something like a consumer assistant, right? Because a consumer assistant is there to play your favorite song, tell you the weather, and a handful of other kind of like small routines that come in and out of your day. But when you're a teacher, you don't just need technology for a second or two, once or twice a day. You're literally now teaching with technology, potentially 24/7 for the time you're in the classroom, some combination of flowing in and out of technology and engaging the students and back and forth. And that is why Merlin is very different. And when you get with teachers who use Merlin today and are using it effectively, they're basically telling you, look, I've now stepped into the future and there's no way I could possibly go back, because I've realized I used to have to juggle everything going on in the classroom and be running around physically from the display to the laptop, to the students, and back and forth the entire time. And Merlin just breaks that down and says, no, stay at the display if you want to stay at the display, and give a command to control your laptop, or do it from the back of the room, or simplify how you get something out of one app into another app, because Merlin's now integrated and brings natural language control to the picture. So it's pretty exciting how different it really is from a voice assistant that you're using in your car or your home. And it needs to be effective in schools.
Yeah, and Matt, as a follow-up to Tracy's question, talk a little bit about the integration into Promethean technologies themselves. Is this something that could be retrofitted into current installations that are there? I mean, how's that set up?
Yeah, so Levi talked about the Symphony Classroom, which is really the hub that drives the Merlin experience in the classroom today. And it is a unique device that is connected to our ActivPanel today, whether or not that's our current ActivPanel version 9 that we're selling, or previous versions of our ActivPanel. The Merlin Symphony Classroom connects directly to our panel, and then we'll share that content that the teacher asked to be pulled up to the front of the classroom. Certainly down the road, there's maybe opportunities for us to have a more integrated experience, something that is certainly an opportunity for us. But right now, the integration is via if you will, the Symphony Classroom, which is a standalone device in and of itself.
Gotcha. And Levi, maybe we could get a little deeper into the weeds about how finite Merlin can get in terms of the interaction. I mean, is it, I would say, like third level, fourth level, like once you're in an app, I mean, can you even drive in deeper? I mean, how deep can you go?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes back to this idea of understanding the workflows. Like, what are you actually trying to do when you're in a classroom as a teacher? What do you want to do when you're a student in a classroom engaging with technology? And what we learned when we first started bringing Merlin into the market, honestly, we actually had to pivot somewhat because we had a vision of what we thought voice and AI would do in the classroom. And then we went and sat with teachers and students and engaged with administrators. And what we heard was, oh, that's really interesting, but what we actually want is this. And what they told us was, don't give me another app. Don't give me another content repository. I have so much amazing content, so many amazing apps. Can you just make it easier for me to use all of those things in a very natural way that allows me to be free to teach, which is the whole point, the reason I'm here. And so as we heard that, we said, okay, we need to now integrate and operate in the world that these teachers and students are living in. And what that meant was on my laptop, with my browser, with my apps, with my content, on my front of room display, inside of the apps that I'm using on a daily basis. And so at a very kind of like first level, you're talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of depth. The internet browser ends up being a really important layer that we go deep in, right? So when you're in your Chrome browser or Microsoft Edge browser with Merlin now, you can control the experience of jumping around tabs, going to different websites, searching and asking questions. I can instantly ask to go to a YouTube video and I can pause and play that video. I can ask it to go full screen. I can ask rewind 30 seconds. I can jump to a specific timestamp. So go to 5 minutes and 30 seconds in the video. All of these kind of really granular commands that are super naturally human, like they just come out of our voices with like instant understanding. Like I want the technology to do that. But right now that has to translate into either touch or touch or kind of typing commands, right? And so we're kind of abstracting back to how can we make it easy to just interact naturally with the instant ability of voice and remote and touch, and then go deeper. So to your point of deeper, in some applications, we go much deeper, right? So in Google Slides and in applications like Google Classroom or Nearpod or these types of applications where we see a lot of usage, we're building what we call automations, but they really end up being like shortcuts. So for example, let's just give one of them. If I am in any website, I have a document or an assignment or a video or some piece of content that I want to share with my students to consume in class on their personal devices or potentially after class at home to review. And I want to put that into Google Classroom so that everybody can review it later. I can simply say, hey, Merlin, add this to Google Classroom. Merlin grabs that link to that resource, understands, because it's already logged in on my computer, understands who I am. It goes to the Google Classroom application and drops that resource right into the feed and then tells me I did it. So that as a teacher, without ever going back to my laptop or even opening the application, I have instantly completed something that previously would have meant breaking the flow of the class or having to remember this kind of like cognitive load on a teacher to say, oh, I'll remember to do that after class. And if I don't, then I broke the learning flow, right?
Yeah. And, so we went a little deep. Let's pull back again a little bit, Matt, and talk about, when Levi talks about teachers using these technologies, at this point in time, we're still talking about some pretty innovative, forward-thinking teachers, right? I mean, in terms of versus the entire universe of educators. Now, before the pandemic, we would always talk and write about the thwatties, like that's the way I've always done it. And we're always hesitant to maybe try new technologies. And I know with Promethean boards, that was always something that you had this technology that was sitting there, but might not be used by some educators that are hesitant to kind of use technology. Now, of course, pandemic comes, everyone's forced to use this stuff, whether they like it or not. And I think for the most part, we've gotten past that idea of teachers being resistant to technologies in the classroom. But what about the professional development of the use of these sort of voice-activated practices, which are, again, kind of new? I mean, can you put that into context a little bit about how from a Promethean standpoint, you bring teachers in to become comfortable with the use of what is, a new technology for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and Levi did a great job, sharing some of the workflows that happen, or a typical workflow that happens today in the classroom. You can imagine a teacher at the front of the classroom utilizing one of the Promethean active panels that he or she has access to, going to different websites, pulling up a YouTube video, utilizing our whiteboard to build out the actual lesson, getting students to come up and interact with the content that's on the front, that is on the panel as well, right? All of those steps that teachers have been taking in the past they take time. They take more time either to interact directly with the panel or to interact with the laptop that may be connected to the panel, just to gain access to that information that you'd like to share with your class and that you'd have your class interact with. What Merlin does is it allows that information now to be, that content to be captured instantaneously, right? To bring that same content that they would be sharing anyway, but to bring it to the front of the classroom so they could be interacted with at the snap of a button, right? At the click of a finger. And I think that's really, it's not a heavy lift to teach teachers how to be able to integrate that additional step of simply talking into a remote control and saying, hey, Merlin, open up my Google Slides on the volcano lesson, right? Versus having to go back to their laptop or at the panel, typing in something to try and pull that information up to the front of the classroom.
Yeah. Another question coming in. Is it portable for installation on a mobile cart with the interactive panels? Again, another great question just in terms of like the brute logistics of this thing. So Matt, maybe I'll have you handle that one.
Yeah, simple answer there is yes. It can be put onto one of our mobile panels where we do have shelves. Merlin Mind also has some mounting brackets which can be utilized for installation, whether or not that's on a mobile stand or if the interactive panel is fixed on a wall. There are a variety of different mounting capabilities that we have and that Merlin has for the product.
Yeah. Another aspect of the classroom dynamic are maybe the 25 or 35 kindergartners or second graders who might find great pleasure in the use of the teacher talking with an automated assistant. Levi, talk a little bit about the student aspect of this dynamic and maybe some of those particulars.
Yeah, so let's talk first about what we've learned from real classrooms. So as we designed this product, we came in initially saying the goal is student success. Let's start we want students to learn more and be more effective in classrooms. The teacher is such an incredible resource in the classroom that understands those humans and knows how to help them and knows how to make them connect with each other and be inspired and motivated and driven to learn. And so much minutia and kind of logistical work is taking away from time the teacher has to help those students. And so the vision was, if we can build an AI system custom built for the classroom that relieves some of the administrative load, the logistical workload of just going around the room and orchestrating technology, then the equation should improve. Teachers have more time to help students and students should learn more. So that was really kind of like the angle going in and what we focused on. Well, what we learned really quickly was the students also engage with Merlin, and it becomes a co-orchestration of learning. In our earliest pilots who have now become our best customers, who are expanding and putting Merlin in every classroom in the district, they've seen that the students engage with Merlin as part of the learning process, that the teacher uses it as an assistant to help them manage the classroom and quickly get to content and work across devices. But they also now can instantly ask questions and get information and have students learn that when you have a question, even if I don't know the answer, and maybe you don't have time to go Google it, I don't want you to break the flow of leaving this group, just ask Merlin the question, let's get a response, and let's keep going down this learning pathway. The teacher does want control over that, importantly. And so we have different mechanisms where you can decide who, as the teacher, has access to Merlin. You can mute the far-field microphones on the Symphony Classroom AI Hub so that nobody can say, hey, Merlin, without using the remote, which then gives the teacher ultimate control on who can give commands. They can pass the remote around, which we've seen as a behavioral management technique. Teachers love to say, who wants to manage Merlin for the day? Who wants to help me manage the class? And so we've seen a lot. We've heard of mock trials where Merlin has been used as a witness, where they're calling for information and engaging with Merlin. We're really, I think, at the very beginnings of what is possible when you bring AI into the learning equation in a way that teachers and students can use. And I think that the pathway forward there is really exciting for us. And it goes back to some of the chat GPT stuff, potentially even, is like, once you have AI in the classroom in a way that is responsible and is productive in the teaching and learning equation, how do you keep bringing more in the right way, right? Like we think this is the beginning, and we're very excited about what we're already doing in classrooms, but we also see ourselves as, our CEO often likes to say that he really believes, so Satya Nitya is our founder and CEO. He led the IBM Watson education effort before he started Merlin Mind. And what he says is, we are translators of the science. We're translators of artificial intelligence, and we're bringing it into education and translating it to make it work for the needs of education. So I think we have a lot more ahead of us to translate what AI can do to engage students and help students beyond just simplifying the way teachers and students interact and engage with technology in the classroom.
Yeah, Matt, does that resonate with Promethean's goal? I mean, I know that there's always been encouraging student use, right? And changing the dynamics of the sage on the stage to where students are coming up and using the displays. Talk a little bit about how you can do that, and you guys are obviously veterans of that, do that, but within a way that the teacher still has a certain element of control.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'll just add too, Levi touched on this a little bit, but one thing we're seeing as well is the reward and recognition aspect for students in being able to, answer the question, and the teacher then allows a student to be able to, play their favorite song or give some sort of recognition to that student, which is just another great use of the tool in the classroom as well. But yeah, absolutely. I would say, right now, Kevin, I think one thing that we're hearing more and more from teachers as a need is that need for bite-sized learning in the classroom, right? And I think one thing that Merlin allows for the classroom to do is to bring those bite-sized learnings to the class very quickly and seamlessly, right? By simply talking into the microphone, as Levi had shown with the remote control rather that he has, you could quickly bring to the front of the classroom content that is, timely in nature, right, for the class and the topic that's being discussed. But then the teacher has the ability to toggle very quickly from that content onto a different topic, maybe in content in a different format, instead of a still slide or Google Slides to a video, as we had talked about from YouTube, right? And really being able to then bring all of the students to get them engaged via that bite-sized learning. We're seeing that as something that's more and more important these days in the classroom, because when you think about it, where we are as far as differentiation and where children are in their different, where they stand with their knowledge and their learning levels in any given classroom, coming out of the pandemic, it's much broader than it was prior to, right? So it's important for a teacher to be able to provide that bite-sized learning so that he or she can touch as many of the students in the class as possible. And having a tool like Merlin allows the teacher to grab content very quickly and do just that.
Let me ask this: during the beta phase of the testing in the schools that you've had, have you noticed that it's more effective in certain grade levels? Can you talk a little bit about primary versus secondary versus middle school? Levi, maybe I'll throw that one at you first.
Yeah, we believed from the beginning that it would be equally effective across all grade levels because of the workflows that we were focused on, right? Which were not the exact way you teach Spanish versus math versus physics versus biology. It was, how do you operate with technology in a classroom as a teacher and a learner, which means searching, finding, navigating, opening, closing, transitioning, like those workflows we believed were universal, but we didn't know that for sure, right? We didn't know if your kindergarten students were spending as much time engaged with digital content and digital applications and devices as your high schoolers or vice versa. What we've learned through the first year of interaction in the market with teachers and students is our initial hypothesis was true. We are seeing deep engagement from K and pre-K up through high school, and even some pilot universities and colleges in the United Kingdom that we're working with. And what kind of, I think, resonates is, regardless of what age, what grade, what subject, everyone is now depending on effective digital content and applications to drive more engaging learning experiences. And so you need tools like the ActivPanel to bring that in a way the whole class can see. You need tools like the Chromebook that allows students to engage on their own in one-to-one experiences. And you need teachers that are able to now flow across all of those digital content experiences and application experiences at the same time as they're trying to navigate 30 humans, subdividing into groups and interacting in active project-based learning and different types of pedagogical approaches. And all of that ends up having some of the same friction, which is I, as a human, have 2 feet and 10 fingers, and I have to walk around the room and do all these things. And Merlin helps with that regardless of age, stage, grade, subject. And we're thrilled now to see that we believe that that's only going to get more deep as we understand more custom needs in the different grade levels. We can be even more effective. But right now, we're finding success at all grades.
Yeah, Matt, how about with the active boards?
Yes, it's very similar, right? I mean, whether or not you're a hands-on learner, you're a visual learner, the ActivPanel allows teachers to bring students to the front of the class for hands-on, obviously bring different content for visual type of cues and teaching, etc. And when you marry that together with Merlin, as we've been saying, you're able to bring that content just instantaneously to the class, and you're not wasting time, you're not losing the class as you're looking for different ways to share content with your class. So spot on with everything that Levi had just shared. And those choice boards, again, that we're hearing more and more about visual learning, hands-on learning. It's more important these days as we get all students back into the classroom. And I think that certainly the ActivPanel helps teachers provide content in different formats, and Merlin allows that content to come to the classroom much more quickly than it had prior to it being there.
Great. So as I channel our audience here, I have a couple other questions that I know they're in their minds, even if they haven't put them into the chat. And one of them involves the cost, and also what the purchasing process is, right? You have an individual chemistry teacher who might need to influence their principal, who then needs to influence the board of the tech director, who then has to influence the school board, right? Talk a little bit about the process of getting this stuff into the classroom if you're an enthusiastic educator or technology coach who's sitting online.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take that one. So first off, you can find all the information about Merlin and Promethean at PrometheanWorld.com. And from there, you could find more information, obviously, about Merlin. We are running a program right now, which is called Meet Merlin. It allows a district to purchase up to 5 of the Symphony Classroom devices at a reduced price. And it's really for that science teacher, Kevin, that you had mentioned, that wants to try the technology and prove to his or her principal that this is something that the entire, high school, middle school, elementary school needs to be outfitted with. So we do have an entry-level price point. You get more information at our website and in chatting or talking with one of the Promethean or Merlin Mind representatives. But we do have that program in place for that very reason that you had mentioned. We recognize that this is something that people are going to want to probably, try and do a proof of concept with. And as such, we're making that very easy for districts to take advantage of the product.
Great. And now, Levi, you were talking about some of the innovations that you found educators using it in terms of student management. Talk a little bit about some of the surprises that came out during the testing phase, as you said, over the course of the past year or so. Any other innovations, light bulbs that went on that were not there during the invention phase versus the innovation phase, say?
We're constantly learning from our users and from our expert teachers on how Merlin can be more productive and effective in classrooms. And I think one of the things we've learned is sometimes just helping with the simple stuff is dramatically impactful, right? So we, as AI experts in our company, look at what the cutting edge can do, right? So we opened the call with this conversation around like ChatGPT, right? So you're literally at a point now where AI, at least in a certain sandbox, has the ability to converse with a human, feel almost like a human on the other side of the conversation, and pull from all of the world's information to respond to questions, to bring you insights, and theoretically even like write an essay for you, right? Like that's pretty crazy. So you could say that we've learned that what is possible with technology is nowhere near what we're currently implementing, right? So if it was just us driving the ship, we could say, let's bring all that into the classroom and give it to teachers today. And what we heard originally, like we weren't looking at ChatGPT, but like the same concept, right? Of like, look at everything we could do was help me do the little things that I need help with right now. Help me make the progress that I'm struggling with as a teacher, which is help me untether from my devices. I don't want to be stuck to the front of the room or to my display anymore. Help me be able to roam freely while I use technology. Help me interact more naturally so that I, as a human, don't have to bear the burden of mastering every application, every menu, every function within every app. Help me just think what I want tech to do and then do it for me. Oh, and if something takes me a lot of steps, like if right now it takes me 10 steps to get something done through a series of actions with an application and a device, can you bring that back into one simple voice command? Hey, Merlin, open the video, go to the 3-minute mark and put it in full screen, right? Give me multiple steps compressed into one so that I can just be effective and in the flow and engage with my students. So what we've learned is more and more importance on simple things like help me set timers and alarms and orchestrate the learning in my class. Help me switch between applications. Help me jump from one tab to the next and pause, play videos, play presentations. Help me ask questions and get information. Those kind of things have been critical. And so we've doubled down there. And we've gone from just the Chrome browser to we heard, hey, help me do that on the Edge browser. I'm a Microsoft school. I'm not just a Google school. And we had to expand and say, okay, how do we empower that? That is the kind of trajectory we're on to say, what do you need and how can we make it better, right? And we're still early, right? Like the system is not perfect. We think it's pretty amazing today and it's only going to get better tomorrow.
Yeah, it is interesting, Matt. You know, you talk about education technology, right? And the perception is on the instructional side, but very much like what Levi is saying, that the functionality part of it, the administrative aspect of it, is very much like ActivInspire when it comes down to the Promethean softwares to begin with, right?
It very much is, and it really is. As Levi was, just talking, was thinking about what does that solve for? It solves for engagement and keeping students engaged in the classroom, which is so key right now. ActivInspire certainly allows for engagement. Lesson plans that are created in ActivInspire by teachers allow students to interact and engage with content, right? By utilizing Merlin with the Promethean ActivPanel, a teacher is able to keep students engaged because, as Levi had mentioned, you take what was a 10-step process to switch from one piece of content to another down to a 5-second request or command, and the content is there. The teacher's moved on to the next step, all while keeping the students engaged and not losing their focus on what's happening in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to you were talking about the special offer for the 5. Let's talk about scale a little bit more. I mean, I know that there are folks in the audience here who are at smaller districts, but there's some that are in larger districts. I mean, you could go all the way up to some of the top 5 districts in this country are larger than most countries when it comes to the ministries of education. Where are we on that timeline, Matt? I mean, where and how much more effective can this tool become when you start to scale out?
Well, I think, and Levi could probably talk to the effectiveness of the tool as more and more users begin to use it, right? But certainly, whether or not you're a small district and you're choosing, or you're the largest district, New York City, in the country, the tool can fit anywhere. The offer that I had mentioned before is applicable to all districts across the country, and we're certainly happy to speak with anyone about the Meet Merlin campaign that we have to offer. I think really it's about utilizing the product ensuring that it's a good fit for the classroom. And then we could talk about expansion and moving across elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, across an entire district. And certainly we're seeing that happen now. So I know Merlin has been out in the marketplace for some time. I think a lot of the larger users started off with a couple of products in their classrooms in a district to ensure that it is the right fit. And then from there, they have decided to do expansions. And that's something that we're working with many districts on right now as we speak.
Great. Another question coming in from the audience about the logistics and the hardcore, which I love. So one of the educators saying that they have a mixture of devices. I mean, beyond just displays. I mean, projectors and iPads and things like that. And you talked a little bit about that, Levi, but can you maybe extrapolate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So again, we believe that Merlin should be ready to interact with whatever setup you have in the classroom, right? There are optimal setups, we believe, that are potentially better than others, but there's the reality of what it looks like today and how do you bring this assistant in to help today. So Merlin can come into the classroom via our Symphony Classroom AI hub, the device that can then connect to any display technology. So yes, other interactive panels, other non-interactive panels, projectors, and allow you to control content from the teacher laptop and display it on any of those displays, right? What we strive for is a classroom that works so seamlessly together that there isn't a lot of friction, right? And one of the things we're really actively working on now is saying, how do you make it so that if a teacher wants to touch the interactive panel and use purpose-built technologies like whiteboards, spinners, timers, alarms, the annotation over the top of content, that's just as natural as it is to interact with your voice with Merlin. And that's one of the reasons that we love the alliance with Promethean is we have confidence that if you interact with the ActivPanel, it's very natural to go annotate on top of any content, to pull up a tool like a timer or spinner to engage the classroom. And then if you're on the other side of the room, you use Merlin to quickly add content to that display and bring experiences, applications, and content into that kind of ecosystem that we're creating. Mm-hmm. You can now create that ecosystem with lots of different displays, right? So if you already have another display, you can connect Merlin to it. But if you're looking for something new, you should look at Promethean with the ActivPanel and Merlin. Like, we just think they work very well together. But yes, Merlin works great with any teacher laptop and display technology.
And if I could just add one other thing too to that, Kevin, also the ability to record the lesson that's being delivered in the classroom is something else that Promethean provides now with our ActivPanel 9 series. So you can imagine the teacher delivering the lesson, pulling up content from different areas and different, be it video or other areas, right? But all the while recording that lesson that he or she is delivering, being able to save that recording and then push it back out. I think Levi gave an example back out to your classroom via Google Classroom, right? So that's that holistic kind of 360 use of the tool Merlin with the Promethean ActivPanel and being able to share back that lesson with your classroom so that they can reconsume it overnight, right? Prepare the next day for the next day's lesson, etc.
Yeah, that's another one of this great like pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. I remember, asking a teacher A, to be on camera, and B, to record a lesson usually led to a lot of resistance. And now that behavior has completely changed, right? I mean, you can turn those recordings into transcripts and have them be real valuable tools.
And it becomes a digital library, really, for teachers, right, of lesson plans that have use for years in the future. And again, by utilizing Merlin, being able to pull that content instantaneously up to the front of to your lesson that you're creating and delivering, there's no break in the teaching. I mean, you think about watching videos today ourselves, if there's a break as you're waiting for somebody to switch a source or go to a different area, you start to become unengaged in that video, right? Even if it's 5 to 10 seconds. By utilizing Merlin, you're eliminating that break in the flow and the workflow, and I think that's something that's definitely critical. We're seeing as a great benefit of the partnership.
Yeah, and Levi, have you noticed anything when it comes to accessibility and the use of voice from educators? Is that something that you've touched upon at all in the beta phase?
Yeah, in fact, Kevin, we had one of our pilot customers in the United Kingdom was a Paralympian in a wheelchair. He's a science teacher who basically transformed what he was able to do in the classroom with Merlin, because he now could have as much control of the technology in his wheelchair from anywhere in the classroom with voice, right? And I think this is like a incredible benefit of voice technology that we are just starting to realize, is how much accessibility opportunity there is. We've also seen this in the United States in one of our classrooms out in California with one of our early customers. They had a classroom with students with special needs around language learning disorder, dyslexia, and speech impediments. And they found that the students were incredibly motivated to interact with Merlin. They wanted to talk to Merlin. And it became an effort in the classroom for the students to master their ability to give Merlin commands. And they saw students having kind of this motivation and drive to say the commands, say, "Hey, Merlin," correctly, so that Merlin would respond. And they just saw this like incredible way that it was bringing in equity and ability for students to engage despite some of the different challenges some of us are born with. And so we're really thrilled at what, not just voice, but what we think of as the multimodal experience holistically, right? Because when you bring together touch with the ActivPanel, voice with Merlin, content and applications that have different abilities based on different needs, you now unlock learning for every person to engage as effectively and simply as is possible to drive successful learning outcomes.
Yeah, and Matt, it seems like that would open up your products as well to be more accessible.
Oh, without a doubt. Like Levi had said, being able to bring content, and get that content simply to the classroom, simply by using your voice, it is certainly a big help in certain situations and instances, right? So, to the extent that we can provide our panel so that content can be shared and information can be shared regardless of the situation that a teacher or the classroom may be in, it's definitely something that we're excited about.
Well, the great thing about this conversation is I really think it's dispelling a lot of myths, right? And again, that kind of mist of AI and what it meant, and then a lot of times worries about these sort of technologies replacing teachers. Just having this conversation with you guys makes it realize that the teacher is more important than ever, and that the technology is there to enable the teacher, right?
Yeah, that's incredibly timely, isn't it, Kevin? With this ChatGPT kind of conversation going on the internet and in social media trends right now, you hear AI and you fear about your job and you worry about the future of what humans will contribute. But then you see, when you put technology and humans together in the right way, you allow them to do more than they could do before. And you realize that we actually need a lot more out of creative, like rational thinking humans. Right? We got big problems. We need more effective teaching. We need more learners. We need great students who are going to grow up and change the world in better ways. And everything we do to marry the best of technology with the best of what we know how to do today as humans, we think is net positive. My kind of, I'll proactively like suggest a question that I bet the audience is asking, which is, but does it actually work, right? Like, this is a lot of great conversation around what is theoretically possible when you bring these things together. And I just want to give a case study of something we've seen recently with one of the school districts we're working with in North Carolina. What I heard from the instructional technologists there, like a year into working with them, was, look, we didn't want to do this. We already had so many things we had to do, and our kind of chief innovation officer was more or less forcing it on us. And so we had to do it, but we did it kicking and screaming. We didn't want to add one more thing into the mix. And sure, it's cool to have an Alexa in the classroom, but we don't need that. It's kind of like the conversation that they had with their administrator. But the administrator had a vision for, well, we think this actually could really do something interesting in the classroom. So they did it. 1 year later, both of those instructional technologists are incredible champions of Merlin. And why? Because their teachers have told them, I have more engaged classrooms now as a direct result of having Merlin simplify the way we teach and learn and engage our students in the classroom. And there's actually a quote that we had on Facebook last week or a few weeks ago from one of the teachers. If it's okay, I'll read it because it was just so clear what happens after you get all of these technologies working effectively together in the classroom. Does that work, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, it does seem to be that we're at this moment in time, right, where these sort of platforms and the voice-based platforms could fundamentally change just taking care of the boring stuff, right? It's probably not good marketing, but it really does seem to be taking care of that boring stuff so the teacher can be focused on the student. So let's talk a little bit about what's next. So we are here at this moment in time. We do see these technologies not as this sort of concept that may one day work in the future, right? So you're saying there are things in place. Merlin is in classrooms taking care of the administrative stuff. I probably ask both of you this. I mean, what's in your crystal ball? Out 3 years, out 5 years? I mean, what's next? I mean, what can we expect with all things being equal and our glasses all half full, that we continue to be out of the pandemic and going forward? Levi, I'll start with you. I mean, where do you see Merlin on a horizon of 3 to 5 years, hopefully?
I think the best way to envision what we all believe is possible one day is to go back to sci-fi. Whether you like it or not, like, movies have captured what we want technology to do eventually, right? Like, whether you go to Star Trek and talking to the computer, or you go to movies like Minority Report and you see Tom Cruise moving content around and like just having things visually appear, we believe that future is real, where it becomes so natural for you to engage with all of what technology has to add to our ability to learn and find information and engage with in applications and information ourselves and our students. That's what we want Merlin to be doing. We want Merlin to live inside of every one of your devices and applications and workflows in a way that it becomes so natural to say, hey, Merlin, help me do this, then help me do that, open this, go there, do this, prepare this for me, remind me of this, interact with the SIS this way, interact with the LMS this way, interact with the application this way. That's a big ask, but that's the future, right? Is saying, like, we have integrated and worked so effectively across all of the tools and applications and devices and requirements that a teacher and a student and administrator is required to do on a daily basis, that so much of what we waste time doing today becomes free time to learn, and to learn in more creative and human ways that we think we all know work better when we experience them, right? Like, oh yeah, that was more fun learning that way. I want to do more of that.
Yeah, there seems to, I'm guessing, an expectation from the students as they're comfortable with this and that they've been raised in this environment, to where in 10 years' time, they might look back at our conversation right now and say, how primitive, right, Matt? Like, it's just like in 10 years ago, we were talking about some of the obvious features and functions of an active display that you could do on a whiteboard, which was still kind of a novelty at the time.
Absolutely. And I think we're all in a place right now where we have everything at our fingertips, all the information on our fingertips, and we wanted it 2 seconds ago, right? Whatever it is that we're requesting. So I think everything that Levi had mentioned about, the ability to, in the future, bring information together from a variety of different places and make it have it be seamlessly integrated is absolutely key. And I'll just add one more thing. What we're hearing now, Kevin, from many teachers and administrators, there's been so much ed tech that has been put in the hands of districts over the past couple of years. They're getting to a point where it's almost information overload for teachers, and they don't know exactly where to turn and what technologies to use. I can't think of anything more simplistic than a voice command to utilize technology and bring the information to the classroom that you want to use for your lesson that you're delivering, right? And I think that's one of the big reasons why we're so excited with this partnership with Merlin, because we see them being able to take technology, cutting edge technology, but it's very simple to learn and easy to understand and easy to use as well.
Yeah. Well, Levi, let's talk about anybody out there in the audience who wants to take the next steps and start to implement something like this. Walk them through the paces. I mean, what would be the first that first day in terms of the use of it? I mean, is there a timeline there?
Yeah. So we've learned that voice is pretty natural for people. It's our main tool we learn from a baby phase is when I cry, someone responds. When I ask for something, if I state it correctly, I might get it, right? We learn to use our voices effectively. And so the technology has been built and designed to integrate effectively with the existing ecosystem, with your display, with your laptop, with your browser, with the applications you use, so that with a very powerful, intelligent remote control that allows you to command with just point and click, as well as voice commands, I can now use the stuff I'm already using in a more natural way. So we've intentionally tried to not force you to learn a new system, right? You're still using your laptop, you're still using your ActivPanel display, you're still using your applications, whatever you're using in your browser. Now you can just say, hey, Merlin, open my file on space. Hey, Merlin, go to YouTube. Hey, Merlin, switch to my laptop. Hey, Merlin, start a timer for 5 minutes. Like those commands now work seamlessly with what you're already using. So what we have seen is professional development is, of course, critical at the beginning of this because it's a new and different way to teach. And so we have a whole process of coming in with the Promethean team during the sales process to understand the pedagogical approach of the school, what they're trying to achieve, how voice can help them drive engagement and effectiveness in their classrooms, and then how you can bring Symphony Classroom into your room in the classroom to connect with your display technology, your laptop, and now control the content that you want to control in a much more natural way with asynchronous training and videos from our team, as well as potentially in-person training and professional development from our team. We find our users emerge pretty quickly, right? You start to get very comfortable with, oh, wow, it's so much easier to speak and command with a remote and interact with my content and devices this way.
So my tech director hat question is this a plug and play? Is it sitting on the network? Can it be separate from the network or can it be on the network?
No, it needs to be on the network because we're connecting into the devices and the applications and tools you're using. We're living behind the firewall intentionally, right? We want to be part of the network so that we are controlling content in the way that the district wants it controlled. It's interacting with the apps the district wants you interacting with. So this is definitely a internet-enabled device that needs to live on the network and be connected. But once you plug it in and connect to the network and connect it to the display, you are ready to go, right? You have to download a Chrome browser plugin and a desktop application that allows you to control your laptop with the remote control, and then you're off to the races.
Gotcha. Well, then, Matt, that does raise concerns because cybersecurity, obviously, even more than artificial intelligence this week, is always a top concern to tech directors. And even when you think about display systems and things that are living on the network, there still is a potential opportunity for a breach to get into the networks. Any concerns on that front, or there's security protocols put into place with both Merlin and with the ActivInspire software?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, and I know Levi could maybe just add on to what I had to share, but certainly our ActivPanel, which is a peripheral on the network, does have the ability to be securely managed by districts and their IT staff, and I know that that's the case with Merlin as well. The ability to certainly set rules and have oversight on both products is something that IT staff are able to do and able to manage. The same way they would be managing laptops and other one-to-one devices that are on the networks across the districts as well.
Yeah, does that resonate, Levi?
Yes, exactly. From the beginning, we had to build this technology to work for classrooms, right? And that was about privacy and security of voice as well as cybersecurity needs of schools. This is a custom-built solution for classrooms to work the way that IT administrators needed to work in the classroom. There's a reason you buy Merlin for your schools and not a consumer digital assistant.
Right. Well, I knew the toughest part of my job this afternoon would be to end the conversation, but we've reached the top of the hour. Once again, Levi and Matt, thank you so much for a really very informative presentation and conversation. And I'd like to thank all of the audience members for joining us as well. As a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to this recording along with the slides. Thanks again for participating and have a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.